Hello and welcome to the CX Files. Welcome back, I should say, after the summer break. It's the 12th of September 2024, and we are back. I'm Mark Hillary in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
And I'm Peter Ryan in sunny Montreal, Mark, where we are going back up to the high 30s this week. And I think that we have never seen a summer like it, or shall I say an autumn like it.
Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds good. We are up in the 30s as well, and it's only early spring here. So everybody's having good weather right now.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of good weather, Mark, for our after our summer break, we are going to be doing an interview where I conducted, in fact, in the last 24 hours with somebody who has pervasively good weather, and that is Michael Clark, who is based in Sydney, Australia. Now, Michael is the co-founder and principal consultant at CXTT Consulting. He's got an incredible resume when it comes to the whole dynamism of customer care and contact center operations in Australia. He decided to strike out on his own a few years ago and is doing a lot of work around both customer experience strategy and technology. And I thought it'd be a good idea to catch up with Michael to get a sense from him about what we should be thinking about when it comes to the CX tech stack. As you know, CX technology is not necessarily the hottest topic or the sexiest topic, much as I hate to use that expression, when it comes to discussions about how customer care is delivered. But it's a very, very important one. It's really like a baseline point that you can't get wrong. Michael had some fascinating views about not just where we've been in the whole CX tech dynamic, but also where we're going.
Yeah, and this is a conversation that you and I have had many times because of the development of the way that the CX environment has changed, particularly in the past decade. Previously we would look at popular BPO destinations, and it was largely around the labor force. Can you get access to the people? Can they get into the office? Is there good public transport? There were all these sort of questions. Now it's not just about having the people for the contact center, but do you have the tech people there to support the processes as well? Because now we're looking at robotic process automation, cloud computing, managing social media, artificial intelligence. There is actually this massive tech stack that goes alongside your CX strategy as well.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked a little bit about this. We talked about the fact that CX tech takes on so many different components and elements. And while there might be flashes in the pan or flavors of the month or hype cycles around particular technologies, which we can all agree we've probably been inundated with over the course of the past nearly 2 years about AI, there's got to be practical application. There's got to be a demonstration about how technology can actually deliver better CX and deliver a better agent experience. And something that one point in the interview I would ask people to really listen for is when Michael delineates what he sees as essential investments for CX tech and the nice to haves. That was really, I think, a good indicator in terms of what any type of the CX strategist, both BPO and in-house, needs to be thinking about.
Yeah, excellent. Well, it's also good just to hear about what's going on in Australia as well, because, clearly we often are dominated in this conversation by what's going on in Europe and the US. So clearly to get views from outside of that sort of sphere of influence is useful as well.
Yeah, it really is. And before we hit the record button, Michael and I caught up a little bit about what was happening in Australia. As you and many of the listeners know, I spent a lot of time there in university when I was studying. And, it's truly a market that I think maybe does from time to time fly under the radar, but is truly a canary in the coal mine for what we should anticipate globally from CX trends. So why don't we, without further ado, go listen to the interview that I conducted with Michael Clark, and would love to get feedback from any of our listeners about what this truly dynamic individual has to say about the CX tech environment. The CX Files is excited to go back down under today, and we are joined by Michael Clark, who is the co-founder and principal consultant at CXTT Consulting. Michael, great to have you here. It's your morning while we're recording, my evening, but really, really excited to be able to catch up on this chat.
Absolutely. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here and connect across hemispheres.
Connect across hemispheres, across an ocean, and
Yep.
also a bit of a rivalry as you're a Sydney guy and I'm a
Yep.
former RMIT Melbourne guy. So forgive
Yep.
me and thank you for letting that slide to be on the podcast.
That's all right. It's you've got that mix of North American and Mexican. We occasionally talk to our Melburnian cousins as the Mexicans because they're south of our border.
Now that I did not know, but I will tell you something that's interesting. I was chatting with somebody from Australia a couple of days ago, and it was rare that this happens in North America, but they actually understood when I talked about the Melbourne uniform, i.e., you've shown up somewhere wearing basically black. And that is
Mm-hmm.
exactly that. When I lived in Melbourne, that was the thing. You would go out to a bar, you'd go to a restaurant, and your entire uniform would be black clothing.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I don't think I've ever lost that taste for dark colors or black clothes, but it's been really good. But Michael, all joking aside, great to have you on the CX files. And I would just say that, we're at a very interesting crux. We're coming up to the end of
Mm,
2024.
mm.
And one of the reasons I reached out to you was because of the fact that you always post a lot of very provocative elements on LinkedIn. And that's a good thing. That's a good
Yep.
thing. And one of the things that I think that I'm picking up on a lot as an advisor in the space right now is a lot of confusion when it comes to technology, when it comes to
Mm,
what type of technologies organizations should be thinking about as they're looking
yep.
to round out their stack.
Mm,
Maybe a good point of reference or good point of departure for our chat
mm.
today would be to talk a little bit about over the course of what you've seen throughout the career that you've had, and it's been a
Sure.
very illustrious career. I would recommend anybody check out. No, no, seriously, buddy, seriously. I'd recommend anybody check out your LinkedIn profile to see what you've done. What have you seen as the most pronounced
Mm,
shifts in CX technology trends and the manner in
mm,
which contact centers, whether in-house or outsourced, have
mm.
been deploying CX technology?
It's a really interesting question, and the grey beard and lack of hair will probably give away that I have been around for a few decades. Look, and I guess going back, in my career, when I first moved into the contact center space, so I was in a financial services firm. It was a restructure, and someone said, "Hey, go and try the contact center. I think you'd be a great fit." And what I found was a really simple, a really simplistic phone-based arrangement. So they had phones on the desktop. They had a little adapter to a headphone, really basic IVR and routing. One of my early projects was replacing an ACD. So it was really a fairly basic single channel environment where hey, we were using spreadsheets to forecast what our volumes might be and how we would meet volume. And I guess over that early 2000s and moving through from there, seen a range of changes, adoption of CRM systems, which really helped with better understanding customer interactions, but again, often quite siloed from the rest of the organization. I think one of the early trends for contact centers has been it's been a standalone. It hasn't always been a core part of an organization, and so different separate technologies and separate activities. And I guess over the last 20 odd years, we've seen changes, call recording capabilities, real improvements in workforce planning, the whole concept of knowledge management from, basic scripts all the way through to really intuitive and engaging systems. I guess in the last decade, probably less than the last decade, has really been that rise of cloud technology, the shift towards contact center as a service platforms, and that ability for contact centers to really scale and integrate with other tools and capabilities. So, all of those technology changes have happened. We've obviously seen a proliferation of channels in the same window of time. So, hey, it's all voice based, and we're answering phone calls through to emails and then chat options. And today, we've now got generative and conversational AI capabilities that are really in that contact center space. And so I think, all of those things have really been significant differences and trends that have emerged over that contact center and CX space, and have impacted really on not just the in-house contact centers, but also, as you alluded to in your question, around the outsourced contact centers and what services they can offer. And yeah, I think the outsourcers can have their own challenges. We can dive deeper into that one if we need to.
I think you've read my mind, Michael, and that was actually my next question. When we're talking about the state of play in 2024, again, we're going into the fourth quarter in the not too
Yeah.
distant future. Um, I'd be curious to get a sense from you as a consultant, as you talk
Mm.
to your clients, what do you see as the biggest challenges contact centers are facing right now and moving
Mm.
into the new year? And maybe if you could tease those out between the captives versus the outsourced players.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, if I start with the captives, probably probably the biggest challenge going around is expectations. And if you're running a contact center, you're in charge of CX. Your life is managing various expectations. You've got the expectations of your customers, the expectations of your employees and your people. You've got stakeholder expectations, and so it is real juggle in meeting and managing those. And often, what I find in talking to clients is the biggest challenges is those expectations don't align. So your stakeholders, particularly internally, are really looking for you to do more with less. They want you to deliver improved outcomes, better performance, a better experience, but to do it with less investment and less resources. On the flip side, you've got your customers who, are looking at organizations through the lens of what they can do on their smartphones now with apps. And hey, I can order an Uber and know exactly where it is and when it's going to be delivered. I can order food. I can order, the way that we engage from a customer perspective has really evolved, and COVID really put that under the microscope further. So that customer expectation has really risen substantially. And on top of that, you've got your employee expectations. How are we treating our people? How do we ensure that they have got, the best ability to meet all of those various needs? So I think the challenge is one of balancing. It comes down to, I think, balancing the technology with the human elements, and how we can use technology to augment, empower, and deliver better outcomes. And I think as a leader, really not get sucked into the trap of technology as a silver bullet. So many leaders will go, "Oh, I've seen this shiny new toy. I've seen this new piece of technology that they think is going to solve all of their issues," and it rarely ever does. So I think there are a lot of the challenges. I think from an in-house contact center perspective, probably the other one that kind of goes to the tech piece is around data management, but that's probably that data management and security is probably a deeper issue as well. And if I think about the outsource space, you know, there's kind of two rough models around outsourcers. There's those who provide everything, and there's those who provide labor. And those, if I start with those who provide labor, they're in a really challenging position because they're captive to their client in terms of the systems, the technology, the processes they might be using. So they're providing a labor base that is handling customer interactions and engaging with customers, but they're really captive to what their client is offering in terms of technology and processes and that ability to improve. So they've got those challenges, which adds layers of complexity for them. I think for the rest of the outsource space, which is, hey, I'm providing everything. I'm providing people, I'm providing process, I'm providing technology, I'm providing governance. Their ability to innovate and deliver great CX often depends on something as simple as what is the client asking for and embedding in a contract. I looked at one recently where a client was asking me to review their outsource arrangement. And what was quite interesting was that at the beginning of the agreement was a success measure based on time-based metrics. Hey, this outsourcer must answer 80% of calls within, I think it was 30 seconds. As soon as you've got that anchor in place, everything else flows from it. So the ability to innovate, to do things differently, and to contain costs, because, hey, as an outsourcer, it is about containing costs, is a real complex juggle.
Yeah, no, And it's interesting for me because, I go back to that distinction you made between providing everything and providing labor. And I think that's a
Yeah.
really, really good way of describing the dynamic now. One of the questions I've had about the BPO community and how they go to market the last little while is we see so many of them saying to the enterprises, we know your budgets are squeezed. We know that you don't have the money
Mm.
to invest in all the new technologies. Come work with us. But we know that their budgets are even more squeezed because the margins are just so thin. So, Michael, from your perspective, how do the BPOs square this circle? I mean, is it
Yeah.
squareable?
Look, I think where the BPOs are beginning to, the ones that are succeeding are adopting AI and automation capabilities. They're the ones who are saying, you know what, we're going to balance that human element with emerging technologies and try and be able to do more with less. So, speech analytics, for example, has been around for a long, long time, but the AI capabilities now that are integrating with speech analytics are really giving some fantastic insights into why people are contacting organizations, what low-hanging fruit exists in terms of pain points and friction points. And so the outsourcers that are doing a good job are really isolating and narrowing in on where are the areas where we're spending too much time and money, because they're repeatable and addressable issues. And so they're finding those, resolving those through automation or other means, and creating extra capacity. And so what they're able then to demonstrate to their client is, hey, look, we're actually delivering you a better level of service. Your customers are happy. We're doing more with less. And now, particularly if they've got a fixed rate, then they're getting themselves an extra profit margin out of the ability to do that because, hey, I'm using less human resources to handle the same or a higher volume of interactions.
So let's talk a little bit about the the role of technology in the contact
Mm.
center. I understand that it's a very nebulous way of introducing this question, but
Yeah.
we'll start maybe from the higher level, from the 40,000-foot view, Michael. So broadly speaking, when you're looking at giving advice to a contact center
Mm.
leader, whether in-house or outsourced,
Mm.
what do you tell them when it comes to defining the right CX tech stack for them? What would you say right now are the core components that are a must?
Mm-mm.
And you talked about the shiny objects. What are the
Yep.
nice to haves that they might want to put to the
Yeah.
side and not necessarily prioritize? Because I will say this, I am one of the people out there that is so sick of this whole hype cycle that's gone around AI for the past nearly 24 months. It's just driven so many of us crazy.
Yep.
And I think it's also led to a lot of confusion for CX leaders that are trying to figure out, with limited budgets that I think we can all agree are a
Yep.
reality across all markets, how do you make the most of money that might not necessarily have an infinite limit to it?
Yeah. Look, it's a really, really interesting question. And as you're asking that, and you referenced earlier that I post a lot on LinkedIn. I saw a cartoon yesterday that I popped up from the Marketoonists. And anyway, it's if you've heard that, you've probably heard the old Abraham Maslow quote: "If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail." So anyway, this cartoon is a table full of screws, and it's someone walking over with a hammer that has AI on it saying, I think we have a solution to all our problems.
Oh my gosh.
So it just, for me, just framed up the whole buzz and hype around AI to a T. So yeah, check that one out. That was a well crafted. But look, I guess to the question of what does a contact center leader need when thinking about the tech stack, look, first and foremost, understand your current state. What have you already got? I see a lot of organizations go out hunting for new capabilities without actually having conversations internally, particularly with their IT and tech teams, to say, what have we already got? Because within a lot of organizations, there is often duplicate investment of technology. So someone's using a cloud-based, subscription-based model for, a project tool that also has other capabilities that no one knows about. So get an understanding of what you've currently got within the organization is probably the first step. I think beyond that, when I talk to contact center leaders and say, well, what you should be looking for, what are the core components? Flexibility, scalability, and what I'd probably term open architecture. And when I say open architecture, what I'm looking for there is the ability to integrate with other applications. So the ability for other applications to integrate into and out of your contact center capabilities. And I say that because if you put yourself in the shoes of a customer, you want a seamless interaction. You want a seamless experience when you're dealing with an organization. Your employees want limited friction. They want the ability to do their job as well as they possibly can. They hate having to toggle between thousands of desktop applications. They hate the processes that force them to hit the tab button, move to the next field, then copy, paste, drop, these things exist in contact centers and they're mind numbing. And so I suggest that, a lot of the cloud-based platforms now, particularly omni-channel capable platforms, are really becoming essential for contact centers. So, the ability to offer voice, chat, email, social media, and offer it. And when I say a seamless experience, the ability for someone to start engaging in a chat and then seamlessly transition into an outbound voice call that helps them without losing any of the context, that's hugely powerful and what customers are really expecting in their interactions. They don't care about the internal dynamics of an organization. They don't care about structures. They don't care about channels. They just want to get an answer. They want to get an outcome. So for contact center leaders, I think they're really key. I think the other elements that really support and enable that, when I was that history lesson, workforce management tools, knowledge management tools, and that kind of quality and analytics piece is hugely important. And again, depending on the size of the organization, the complexity of what you're dealing with, a prioritization of those things. If you've got 20 people answering calls, over investing in workforce management is not the go. If you've got a really complex environment with lots of products, solutions, complexity, your first investment might be on a best of breed knowledge management capability, because that's going to unlock efficiency for your people in dealing with those issues. So I think that understand your current state, see what you've already got, look around flexibility, scalability, look around that cloud-based omni-channel, and then understand your business in terms of what's going to give you best bang for buck in terms of your investment. You did ask about nice to haves. So if I finish on nice to haves, look, probably circle back to where I was at the beginning with AI. AI at this stage in a lot of the use cases is a nice to have. Because what you need for AI is you need to have data and you need to have content and context. And if you have siloed technologies, if you have older architectures, then trying to overlay and deploy AI pilots is going to be time consuming and problematic. And so really, invest in the capabilities that you need to improve your efficiency, to create a more joined up architecture and data strategy. Then you can have a look at some of the AI pilots and tools.
That's awesome. That's really good feedback, Michael. Thank you. And I'd like to finish off our chat today by talking to you a little bit about what we should be anticipating for the next calendar year. As somebody who's a specialist in CX technology, what do you see that might be under the covers or between the lines right now that those of us who take a broader view of CX technology and might not be seeing? What do you think we should be anticipating as essential things to be considering for that CX tech stack going into next year?
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting one, and you pull out the crystal ball and try and get a sense of where it's going. Look, what I'm seeing is what I've referred to a little bit about the evolution of CX platforms. And so if you think about the contact center, your contact center has evolved from a voice-based interaction. You've got other tools and systems that have evolved from other capabilities. So what I'm seeing is that increasing breadth and depth of what I'm referring to as CX platforms. So once we're voice, now we're omni-channel, but delivering all of those capabilities under the one platform that we've talked about today. Voice, chat, AI, social media, some workforce management, knowledge management, and where that's happening now is where the edges are blurring is increasingly into that CRM space as well. So you're seeing, vendors who are getting deeper integrations with leading CRM solutions, your Salesforce, your ServiceNows, your Dynamics, really deep integrations. And I think what's going to happen over the next little while is that convergence of tech stacks. So what was clearly a contact center solution is now blurring into other business streams, and I think that's going to continue. I think the other key element that's probably happening in a little while is going to be market consolidation. There's hundreds and hundreds of vendors out there playing in the CX space. How long they can all survive, pitching at the same business is going to be is the other key question. So I think there's an evolution of the CX platforms. I think there'll be some market consolidation. In the next 12 months, though, I think you're looking at, AI again, but AI that's been used, lots and lots of pilots that are starting to become embedded beyond pilots. So what I'm seeing, particularly in the Australian market, is lots of small use case pilots that are being rolled out without the understanding of what the long-term impacts are. So I think that's going to continue to play through. And probably the other one, again, just driving, the other two the other key elements that play out probably go to the customer side of things. I talked about customer expectations. That real hyper personalization, I think, is becoming a real trend where your customers really expect you to understand who they are and what they're doing. The employee experience is the other piece. How we're using technology to improve their work-life balance and make their life easier. And then, probably that last little piece to keep an eye on is, data security and compliance, partly because we continue to see issues arising with breaches, with problems, and CX leaders will inevitably have to deal with some of the mopping up of these things if they're not managed appropriately.
Well, that is a great point to end on. So, Michael Clark, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure catching up with you today. I can't believe we've both been in the industry for so long that we've not actually connected before, but it goes like that sometimes. But truly appreciate the opportunity to find out your views on what's going on with the CX technology and where we should be looking for our key trends in 2025. We wish you all the best and hope to have you back on the CX Files soon.
Thanks, Peter. Much appreciate being on the CX Files with you.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. We really appreciate your feedback and suggestions. You can reach myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan via LinkedIn. Please also leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast provider, as that helps more people to find us. As always, we'd like to thank Chris Haig at Traction Media for the CX Files graphics. See you next week.